Yeah, welcome back friends. Today we are going to continue with the fourth session in our topic of genetics. Na leo tunaenda kuanza kudiscuss kuhusu hereditary materials. Pindi vitatu vipita to discuss concept ya genetics, tukadiscuss the basic terms used in genetics, and today let's start with hereditary materials. Kwa wale ambao mna au mlisoma O level genetics, manake ni kwamba zile basic terminology tayari you know them, na hapa ndipo ambapo mtaanza kuenjoy advanced level genetics. Actually ni kwamba hizi hereditary materials hata katika ordinary level mlisoma hizi hereditary material, lakini huku tunaenda kusoma kwa undani kidogo. Hereditary material or genetic materials are carrier of hereditary information from one generation to another generation. So simply they are carrier of hereditary information. They carry hereditary information from generation to generation. Actually it is from parent to offspring. Unaona? So in some books kama kitabu cha Tai utakuta wameandika hereditary material kwa maana ya umoja, hereditary material. Lakini in some books utakuta wameandika hereditary materials. So don't get confused. Actually, we have two categories of hereditary material. Unaona? We have two categories of hereditary materials which are DNA and RNA. So that's why kwenye kitabu changu mimi nimeamua niandike tu katika plural hereditary materials. So they are carrier of hereditary information from one generation to another generation. In other words, you can define them chemical structures or units. Na wewe hata ukitaka utumie definition ambayo iko kwenye Tai, yani the chemical structure, kwa sababu this definition simply mean plural. R means plural. Yeah, nadhani kwa wale ambao mko vizuri kwenye English kidogo mnaweza mkaelewa. Maana yake ni wingi, structures ni wingi, units ni wingi. Unaona? Which are ni wingi. So chemical structures or units in chromosome which are responsible for the passage of genetic information from one generation to another. Atakayetumia singular itakuwa the chemical structure or unit in the chromosome which is responsible for the passage of genetic information from one generation to another. Hicho ni Kiingereza tu, lakini haija affect chochote katika definition. Still definition mean the same, na mwalimu anayeelewa anakuwa anajua kwamba kilicho tofautiana hapa ni Kiingereza, lakini definition ya genetic material imbakia pale pale, au hereditary material imbakia pale pale. So anachokisema hapa ni kwamba hereditary material can be defined either in plural or in singular, but I prefer this in plural because you have two categories of hereditary material which are DNA and RNA. So there are two types of genetic material in the cell. Unaona? These are deoxyribonucleic acid, deoxyribonucleic acid, deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA, and ribonucleic acid, RNA. They contain different chemical components and hence different properties. Unaona? The hereditary materials contained in an organism is usually encoded in the DNA or RNA sequence. Hizi DNA na RNA zinatumika kwenye mazingira tofauti tofauti. Jinsi ambavyo DNA inaweza kutumika sivyo ambavyo RNA inaweza kutumika katika cell. So zinatumika kwenye mazingira gani na umuhimu wake upoje katika cell tutaenda kudiscuss later. But now let's deal with this first part of hereditary material. Let's deal with the location of hereditary material in the cell. Unaona bwana? Kwamba tayari tulisoma kule kwenye cytology kwamba cell it has a lot of organelles. But if you remember we studied kwamba a nucleus is an organelle which control all other activities of the cell. And by the way ni kwamba nilifundisha kwamba how the nucleus control other activities of the cell. Unaona? Nikasema the nucleus tend to produce proteins. And these proteins, some of them they are enzymes, some of them they are regulators, hormones, chemical messengers. These proteins, they regulate various activities of the cell. Unaona? Most often these proteins they are enzymes. lakini hizi proteins zinaweza ikawa hata vitu vingine, lakini the nucleus tend to control the activities of the cell by producing protein. Unaona, the process of protein synthesis sasa ndio tutakuja kuisoma katika genetics, kwamba protein inatengenezwaje, tutakuja kusoma kwenye genetics. Lakini by this time hatusomi protein synthesis. By this time tunataka kujua the location of hereditary material in the cell. Kama wanifuatilia vizuri kwenye maelezo yangu, ni kwamba kwenye cytology tulisoma the nucleus control all other activities of the cell, and if you remember tulisema kwamba the nucleus, it has that ability because of the presence of DNA in the nucleus. So in this topic of genetics, you will understand well how the nucleus tend to control other activities of the cell. That's why there is the great link between the topic of cytology and other branches of biology, as you can see how we are discussing it here. Now, in the cell, in eukaryotic cell, genetic material are mostly located in the nucleus. Why are we saying are mostly? Kwa nini tusitumie neno kwamba they are located in the nucleus? Kwa nini nasema they are mostly located in the nucleus? Unaona, the reason behind is because genetic material, they are of two types. As I told you, they are RNAs and DNA. So DNA iko kwenye nucleus, lakini RNA, some of the categories of RNA, they are present in the nucleus, while other categories of RNA, they are present in the cytoplasm. So tukichukua genetic material zote ya DNA pamoja na RNA, DNA it is confirmed in the nucleus, but RNA it is in the cytoplasm. Unaona, kwa sababu RNA mara nyingi inakuwa kwenye cytoplasm, that's why tunasema they are mostly located in the nucleus. That means the major genetic material among these two is the DNA, which is located in the nucleus. So the great portion of genetic material, kipande kikubwa cha genetic material ziko wapi? Ziko kwenye nucleus, lakini sio zote, kwa sababu nyingine ziko kwenye cytoplasm. Unaona, while in prokaryotic cells they are found in cytoplasm in a special region called nucleoid. Unaona, hii tayari tulishaelezea kule kwenye cytology regarding nucleoid, kwamba within the prokaryotic cell they don't have true nucleus and they don't have the nuclear membrane. So ni kwamba kuna region fulani ya huyu prokaryotic cell, ambayo region fulani ya prokaryotic cell inakuwa ndio region ambayo inakuwa imecontain hizi DNA. Unaona, na ndio inakuwa ndio region ambayo inaweza ikatengeneza zile DNA kwenda kwenye copies mbalimbali kama ambavyo tutadiscuss huko mbele. Lakini one thing you need to know is that in eukaryotic cell genetic material, they are mostly located in the nucleus. DNA is present in the nucleus, but most of RNA, they are present in cytoplasm. That's why we are using the term that they are mostly located in the nucleus. Unaona, while in the prokaryotic cell they are found in the cytoplasm in a special region called the nucleoid. So the nucleus is a highly specialized organelle that serves as the information processing and administrative center of the cell. Unaona, nucleus ni information processing na administrative center of the cell. Yani kwamba tunavozungumzia administrative center of the cell ni kwamba it's like in our bodies. In our bodies we need the brain which control all other activities of the body. Unaona, the brain is the processing center ambayo all other activities of the legs, of the hands na viungo vingine vyote vya mwili, they are coordinated by the brain. Unaona, kwa hiyo in the cell now, the nucleus is the information processing and administrative center. It is the nucleus which control and tend to maintain the rate of different chemical reactions in the cell, and also it is the nucleus which organize different activities which are going on in the cell. Kwa hiyo nucleus ndio ambayo inafanya cell ifanye hivi, cell ichukue glucose, cell respire, iongeze rate ya respiration, ipunguze rate, ifanye hiki, yani every activities which is going on in the cell, which is going on in every organelle of the cell, it is the nucleus which control that activity. So nucleus actually has two major functions. However, in cytology we discussed the several functions of nucleus because it controls vast number of activities, a lot of activities. But in this part, we are dealing with the two major. Major means the general activities of the nucleus. First is to store the cell hereditary information or hereditary material. And in this case, it is the DNA, not the RNA, it is the DNA. So it is the DNA which is confirmed in the nucleus, not the RNA. As I told you kwamba RNA iko wapi? Kwenye cytoplasm, lakini DNA ndio iko wapi? Kwenye nucleus. Kwa tukisema it stores the cell's hereditary information, that means it stores DNA. You will understand later kwa nini DNA tunairigadi sana kama hereditary material kuliko RNA. RNA is also hereditary material, but DNA stores hereditary material, while RNA transfers hereditary material. The role of DNA is to store hereditary material and to transfer them from parent to offspring. But RNA tend to transfer hereditary material within one organism. RNA haiwezi katumika kuchukua hereditary information from the parent to the offspring. RNA inatumika kutransfer hereditary information. In other words, ni kama inatumika kustore hereditary information temporarily, yani kwa muda mfupi, while DNA it is used to store hereditary information permanently. Unaona, that's why we consider much DNA the hereditary material rather than the RNA. Unaona, kwa you need to understand about this kwamba RNA inatumika kustore hereditary information temporarily, na ndio maana tunaenda kudiscuss later regarding types of RNA. Some types of RNA, they are made in the cell and then they are used for some time. After that they are degraded, yani manake zinavunjwa. Why? It's because they are used temporarily. Hazitumiki permanent as how the DNA is used. So that's the first major function of nucleus. The second major function of nucleus is that it coordinates or controls all activities of the cell, which include growth, metabolism, protein synthesis, and reproduction or cell division. As I told you that we shall discuss how the cell, the nucleus of the cell tend to control all of these activities. Actually, in this topic of genetics, we'll be discussing how the nucleus tend to control protein synthesis. And this synthesis of protein, because these protein produced, some of them they are hormones, some of them they are enzymes, some of them they are neurotransmitters. All of these protein, they tend to control other activities of the cell. For example, the protein produced, if they are hormones, that means they will go to control growth. Most of the hormones, they are protein in nature. Unaona, kama ambavyo tunasoma katika coordination, most of the hormones they are protein in nature. In the topic of coordination, we discuss kwamba kuna hormone ambazo zinakuwa zina nature protein, kuna hormone ambazo zina nature ya fats, yani zina nature ya cholesterol in nature, for example reproductive hormones. Lakini pia tuna hormone ambayo nature yake ni amino acid tyrosine. Unaona, sasa kama hii protein yote tengenezwa ni hormone, let's say ni growth hormone, manake hii protein itaenda kucontrol nini? Growth. You see? And then kama hii protein yote tengenezwa ni enzyme, let's say it's the enzyme of glycolysis, that means itaenda control nini? Metabolism. Unaona, kama hii protein ile tengenezwa katika cell division, kuna vitu tunavita protein mbalimbali ambazo zinakuwa zina regulate the cell cycle. We shall discuss them in the topic of growth. Unaona, ziko protein mbalimbali ambazo zina control protein mbalimbali ambazo zina control cell division. Sasa hivi vyote tunakuja kuona ni kwamba the basic of a nucleus to control other activities of the cell ni nini? Ni presence of protein synthesis. Kwa hiyo tunakuwa kuna mechanism ambayo tuna synthesize protein, and this protein synthesized by the nucleus tend to control other activities of the cell. So eukaryotes have true nucleus, while prokaryotes do not have nucleus. So matrix inside the nucleus is called nucleoplasm, where most of the nuclear material consists of chromatin. Unaona, chromatin is the less dense form of cell's DNA that is organized to form chromosomes during cell division. Kwa hiyo DNA huwa zina coil zinatengeneza chromatin, zina coil tena kwenda kutengeneza chromosome, as how we discussed in cytology. So chromosomes are thread-like structures in the nucleus which carry genes. They are thread-like structures in the nucleus which carry genes. These are the chromosomes. Now I hope you have understood regarding the introduction to the hereditary material and the allocation in the cell, and more especially here we are talking of the eukaryotic cell, kwa sababu we are studying this genetics as part of understanding human being cell, unaona, as part of understanding the physiology of a human being cell, kwa sababu this is the elementary knowledge which you will need to use it in your university level to study a doctor of medicine or a bachelor in veterinary medicine, which is udaktari wa wanyama. Kwa hiyo umepata elementary knowledge hapa, lakini from there we shall discuss the evidences that hereditary material they are located in the nucleus. Evidence ambazo zinatuambia kwamba hereditary material they are located in the nucleus. We shall discuss these evidence well in the coming session. So in this session, let's stop here. In the coming session, we'll continue these evidences. Thank you. Let's meet in the coming session.